Hey there, welcome to another episode of Way Out Wednesday. My name is Dr. Ashley Southard. I am the site director and clinical therapist at a New Beginning Outpatient Treatment Center and also the co-founder and program director of the Healthy Way Out Emotional and Binge Eating Weight Loss Program, both located in Scottsdale. So this month, I'm really excited to be bringing you a whole new topic for our Way Out Wednesday series. And we're right smack in the middle of summer, so I thought this might be the perfect time for us to talk about some very common summertime stressors that can make you a lot more vulnerable to emotional and binge eating. Now, for a lot of people, stress can certainly be a huge trigger for emotional and binge eating. In fact, there's even kind of a little saying that says stressed is desserts backwards. Maybe you've heard that before. And for a lot of people who turn to food for comfort, that is absolutely true. And summertime can bring its own stressors that can really leave you vulnerable to overeating. So I thought we could talk about a couple of the most common ones and some strategies then for managing that stress in a more effective way so that you're not turning to food and feeling frustrated with your commitment to eat healthy or to not overeat, but then finding yourself doing that anyway. So with summertime often comes a lot of traveling, a lot of change in routine and schedule. Maybe you're out on some fun vacations. Maybe the kids are home from school. Maybe things at work have kind of slowed down or you're getting caught up on stuff that normally you can't get done. But a lot of times this time of year is a transitional time where there's changes in routine and schedules, and that can be really stressful to our system. A lot of emotional and binge eaters are also very sensitive to those types of changes. And I don't say that in a derogatory way at all. There's just a heightened sensitivity to change that can feel even more stressful than maybe someone who doesn't have that sensitivity. So this can definitely be a time of year where people struggling with food may find themselves turning to food even more so than normal for that comfort. So let's talk today about one of the most common summertime stressors that may set you up for emotional and binge eating, and that is traveling. Now, we all know that traveling can be very exciting and it can be very stressful. This is what we call a dialectic, where you're having two opposing emotional experiences about the same thing at the same time. So maybe you have a trip coming up that you've been planning for a year and you're super excited about it. You're going to be with people you love. You're going to be in a place that you love. You're going to be having new experiences. That can certainly be very exciting. And at the same time, getting ready for this trip and going on this trip may also be a very stressful experience. Now, I don't know about you, but just getting ready to go on a trip can be very stressful, trying to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row so that you can leave and everything can kind of happen the way it's supposed to. Packing can be very stressful. How much should you pack? What should you pack? What if the weather's different than what you're planning for, right? That can be very stressful. The actual act of traveling can be very stressful, whether you're spending time in an airport or long distance in a car. That can be very stressful. Then when you arrive at your destination, maybe you're in a new city that you're having to navigate for the first time. Maybe you're in a foreign city or country where people speak a different language and you're having to figure that out. Or maybe you're headed to a familiar environment, but maybe there are stressors about that you're experiencing. Perhaps you're spending time with people that maybe you love them and maybe they stress you out at the same time. Also, when we're traveling, we also tend to have a lot of new experiences. Maybe we're trying new foods, maybe we're going on new adventures, we're exploring new cities. And again, while that can be really fun, it can be very taxing on our nervous systems. We're having to pay attention, we're having to think a lot, we're having to figure a lot of things out, and that can just simply be very stressful. So if stress is a trigger for you, when it comes to emotional and binge eating, then we can see how traveling might set you up for even more emotional and binge eating than what you might typically do during a very normal schedule, okay? Traveling can leave us feeling very overstimulated, overtired, and just overwhelmed. And overwhelm and stress are huge, huge triggers. So a lot of times when people are turning to food in response to stress, it's because they're looking for something that will kind of down regulate their system, something that will calm and soothe the nervous system. And for a lot of people, emotional and binge eating can do just that. When you're eating food, especially certain foods like carbohydrates and sugars, they actually do have a calming effect on your body. So there is a physiological response to that stress that you're feeling. Also, for many people who experience emotional and binge eating, this tends to happen in isolation when they're alone. And so that time where there's no stimulation, where there's nobody talking to you, where you're not having to engage, that can actually be very regulating as well, because you're not having to exert so much energy and pay attention to everything going on around you. So the emotional and binge eating experience can be very soothing in response to stress and feeling overwhelmed. But as you've probably experienced, that calm and soothe goes away real quickly. And it gets replaced by shame, self loathing, critical self talk, and all of that, of course, is just its own form of stress. So while the emotional and binge eating may soothe you very, very temporarily, you're probably going to have a backlash of a lot of self loathing and critical self talk afterwards. Okay, so let's talk about some proactive steps that you can take to really care for yourself in the midst of traveling so that you're much less likely to be turning to food as a way to soothe that stress. Now, the first thing I'm going to suggest is bringing you back to the basics. Let's get back to the very basic steps we take every day to care for ourselves. Now, there are two main sources of energy that we have. One is food and one is sleep. And these are critical. If we're in a regular day with a regular schedule at home, or if we're traveling, these are critical components to maintaining your emotional health, balance, and well-being so that you're not feeling so vulnerable to stress and then eventual emotional and binge eating. Now, if you are tired, what kind of mood are you typically in? Usually when we're tired, we can be cranky, we can be irritable, we can get stressed out a lot more easily. Maybe we find ourselves snapping at other people. We also tend to get more cravings when we're tired because remember, if our two sources of energy are food and sleep, and we're low on sleep, our body's naturally going to crave food. So we definitely want to make sure that while we're traveling, sleep is maintained. Now, I know it can be really tricky, but you want to try to stick to your sleep schedule that you have at home as closely as possible. So that means going to bed at about the same time and getting up at about the same time, even when you're traveling, okay? Make sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night if possible. Make sure it's the same hours every night so that your body can stay in that regulated routine, which will help you not feel so stressed, which will help you be less likely to turn to food. All right. Now, the other piece we want to watch is regular eating. So when we're traveling, a lot of times we can kind of get into this free for all mentality. I'm on vacation. I deserve this treat. I don't want to have to think about food at all. I just want to no holds barred eat whatever I want. And while that may be very fun in the short term and kind of mentally relaxing to not have to think about food, that's not a real practical strategy because a couple of things are going to happen. One is you're probably going to overexert yourself when it comes to food. You're probably going to overeat because you've kind of given yourself permission to not think about it at all. And while that can be fun temporarily, when you overeat, you typically don't feel good, as I recently mentioned. And so you're probably going to get more emotionally stressed just from the fact that you're kind of not paying attention to your food. Now, we also don't want the pendulum to swing in the other direction where you find yourself dieting and worrying about food. After all, you are on vacation. That doesn't mean that this is a free-for-all, but it does mean that it's time to enjoy the food that is around you. If you're in a new city, I want you out there trying the local foods of that city. If you're at a family reunion and grandma is making your favorite pie that you only get once a year at this reunion, you bet I want you enjoying that pie. So we definitely don't want you depriving yourself or restricting yourself because, as you know, diets simply set you up for later binging. But we do want you paying attention to that. So enjoy the food that's with you and at the same time, really encourage yourself to stop when you're satisfied and eat again when you're starting to feel hungry. You can have more of that pie later. You can enjoy more of that local food later. We also want you to respect your body and not fill it up to the point that it's feeling uncomfortable, which is stressful, which actually will set you up for more overeating. So really focusing on keeping your food balanced and pleasurable. Enjoy your food while you're on vacation, just as I would encourage you to enjoy your food every day of the year, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're on vacation. I want you enjoying your food, and I want you to enjoy it in moderation so that you don't feel stressed, deprived, overstuffed. All of those are going to be triggers for later emotional and binge eating, okay? So back to the basics, keep it balanced, plenty of sleep, plenty of nourishing food, plenty of pleasurable experiences with your food. If you can do that, you're going to be in great shape. Okay, the next thing that I want to encourage you to do to help you stay away from feeling super stressed while traveling is to take some of the comforts of home with you. Our bodies and our psyches thrive when we have some of the comforts and familiarity from home. So this could be something as simple as your favorite pair of pajamas that you wear every night at home. This could be your pillow or a special blanket or sweatshirt that you like. This could be photos. This could be anything from home that is comfortable to you that helps you feel as though you have a little bit of home with you. That's very soothing to your body and to your mind. And again, will help you not feel so stressed in the midst of all the newness and all of the change that traveling naturally brings with it. Okay? The third piece of advice I would offer is to try to establish a mini routine while you're on your vacation. And I say this because routine is something that human psyches really thrive on. We are creatures of habit. We really like routine. Now, we like to break out of those routines every once in a while. Hence why we go on vacation, why we take breaks. But really, we do like routine. It helps us stay regulated and feel balanced, and again, less stressed. So when you're traveling, see if you can create mini routines within your trip. Now, this is obviously going to be very specific to what your particular trip would be, but a couple of examples would be maybe in the morning. If you're staying at a hotel and they have a little cafe downstairs, maybe before you get your day going, you spend 15 minutes walking downstairs, getting a cup of coffee, and just kind of sitting in the cafe for 5 or 10 minutes, collecting your thoughts, thinking about how you want the day to go. Even a little routine like that can be very soothing and kind of anchor you in some sense of regularity in the midst of all the newness and change happening with the traveling. Another example of creating a mini routine is maybe you spend 15 minutes at the end of your day doing a little bit of reading or a little bit of journaling, or even texting with a friend back home, so that you're just kind of spending that little bit of time closing out your day, connecting with yourself. But again, it's a routine. It's something that your body and mind can count on every day while you're traveling, okay? And again, that's going to be very soothing. Our psyches like familiarity and they like routine, so find that little bit of routine that you can establish within your travels, and I think that will really help you feel less stressed. Okay, the last piece of advice I would offer, and I think this one is super, super important, that I will suggest to you every single day of your life, is that you really check in with yourself on a regular basis to notice how you're feeling and if there's anything that you're needing in response to that emotion. The best way to stay on top of your binge and emotional eating is to stay on top of your feelings, because if you pay attention to how you're feeling, and if you're attuned to what you might be needing in response to those feelings and you can get those needs met, you're much less likely to feel stressed and to turn to food for that soothing and comfort, okay? If you don't check in with yourself, you're going to be having a lot of emotions that are getting activated and piling up inside, and it's actually that pile up that can create a significant amount of stress, which of course can lead to a lot of emotional and binge eating. So check in with yourself on a regular basis, and that's going to be kind of a different frequency for everybody. It could be a couple of times a day. For some people starting out, it might be once a day, maybe at the end of the day. You kind of check in. How was the day for you? What do you notice yourself feeling? Is there anything that you need at this point to help you feel better? For some people who have been doing this a little bit longer, you might find yourself feeling comfortable checking in on an hourly basis and just kind of monitoring how you're doing and trying to address those emotions and needs right away. So figure out a rhythm that feels good to you, and that can be actually part of your daily routine that I was mentioning too, that you check in with yourself. Maybe you do a little bit of journaling and self-reflection to really identify what is going on, and if there's anything that feels distressing, uncomfortable, or unpleasant, what do you need to address that emotion in a healthy way so that the emotion gets processed and diffused, and then you're not turning to food for comfort and soothing, okay? So traveling can be a lot of fun. We want you to be able to focus on the excitement of traveling, the new adventures, and the time and the memories that you get. We don't want you feeling so stressed. We certainly don't want you feeling like food is a dark cloud hanging over your travels. So implement these steps, maintain a regular eating and sleep schedule, bring some of the comforts from home, and establish a little routine while you're traveling, and check in with yourself emotionally. If you can do these things, I suspect your travels are going to be fantastic. You are going to have the best memories from this year's summer vacations. All right? So we'll be back next week for another conversation about a stressor that affects a lot of people struggling with emotional and binge eating. And hopefully I'll have some handy tips for you about how to get through that without turning to food. All right? Have a great week. See you soon. Bye-bye.